A tender is an invitation to submit a proposal for a construction project or supply of goods. The aim is to win the contract by offering the best value for the customer's budget. Tenders, also known as bids or proposals, are a way for organizations to procure goods, services, or works by inviting interested parties to submit offers. There are several types of tenders, each with its own process and characteristics. Some common types include open, selective, and negotiated tender. An open tender invites all eligible contractors to submit a bid for a construction project. This tender type is typically used for larger, more complex projects and allows for competitive pricing. Advantages of open tender are, in open tenders, there are high levels of transparency and competition. In open tenders, owners can receive a better price because of a high number of bidders. In selective tenders, the buyer invites only a selected number of contractors or firms to bid for a project. Selective tenders are also known as limited tenders. They are used when the buyer has a particular need that can't be met through an open or public tendering process. Limited tenders are ideal for highly specialized or confidential projects where the buyer wants to limit the number of bidders to improve the quality of the work, security, and other reasons. Advantages of limited tenders are, there is higher likelihood of finding a suitable supplier. By inviting only suppliers with proven expertise or capacity, the buyer can increase the chances of finding a suitable supplier for the project. There is better control over the procurement process. With a smaller pool of bidders, the buyer has more control over the procurement process and can ensure that the suppliers understand the requirements and conditions of the project. When the client and the contractor negotiate the terms and conditions of the projects directly, then it is known as negotiated tender. Instead of following the procedure of tendering in which the client invites multiple bids for the projects, the client negotiates all the terms, such as conditions of payment terms, quality of work, delivery time, and other specifications, directly with the contractor or company. Advantages of negotiated tender are, there is improved cost effectiveness. The negotiation process allows for cost-saving opportunities and better alignment of the price with the buyer's budget. Delivery time is faster. Negotiations can lead to the agreement of more favorable delivery times, which can be especially beneficial in urgent or time-sensitive procurement processes. Electronic tender, also known as e-tender, is a process where all the floating and bidding is done electronically. This tender type has become very popular in India due to COVID-19 and other transparency reasons. Every authority nowadays floats their tenders on their department's websites. Contractors can search and file the tender online very quickly. E-tenders help streamline the tender process, reduce costs, and increase efficiency. Advantages of e-tenders are: e-tenders are accessible from anywhere with an internet connection, making the procurement process more convenient for all parties involved. E-tenders allow for the secure and organized management of tender documents, reducing the risk of loss or damage. Based on the procurement method for selecting contractors or suppliers, tenders can be classified as single-stage or two-stage tenders. In single-stage tendering, all project information, including design specifications and pricing requirements, is released to all potential bidders at once. Bidders submit their complete proposals, and the client selects the winner. Winner is often the lowest price. Single-stage tendering is suitable for projects where the scope is well-defined, and the information needed for accurate pricing is readily available. In two-stage tendering, the first stage focuses on pre-qualifying contractors based on their qualifications, experience, and sometimes preliminary proposals. Qualified contractors are shortlisted. In second stage, these shortlisted contractors are invited to submit detailed technical and financial proposals, often including a negotiated price. Benefits of two-stage tendering are: early contractor involvement allows for contractor input in the design and planning phase, potentially leading to better solutions and cost savings. Contractor expertise can help refine the design, improve constructability, and identify potential issues at an early stage. By involving the contractor early, there's a better chance of achieving a fixed-price contract with fewer surprises. Two-stage tendering is suitable for complex projects, projects with high levels of uncertainty, or those where early contractor input is beneficial. The tendering process includes 8 stages. Let us look at each stage in detail. Identifying the need is the first step in the tender process. This initial phase involves clearly defining the organization's requirements and specifications for the goods, services, or works they intend to procure. This step is crucial as it lays the foundation for the entire tendering process and ensures that all subsequent stages are aligned with the organization's needs. A clear understanding of the need allows for a well-defined scope of the project, ensuring that the tender documents accurately reflect the requirements. The identified need directly influences the information included in the tender documents, such as the statement of work, technical specifications, and evaluation criteria. By starting with a clear need, the tendering process can be better aligned with the organization's overall strategic objectives. A well-defined need allows for the development of clear and measurable evaluation criteria, enabling a more efficient and fair evaluation of the submitted bids. Clarity in the needs identification stage minimizes ambiguity and potential errors in the subsequent stages, reducing the risk of misunderstandings and disputes. A thorough understanding of the need enables informed decisions throughout the tendering process, from selecting the appropriate tendering method to awarding the contract. The second step in tendering process is preparation of tender document. A tender document is a comprehensive package provided by a buyer to potential suppliers, outlining the requirements, terms, and conditions for a specific project or contract. It's essentially an invitation to bid, detailing what's needed and how suppliers can participate in the procurement process. Tender documents typically include invitation to tender. This section outlines the purpose of the tender, the tendering process, and key dates. Instructions to tenderers. This section provides guidance on how to prepare and submit a bid. Technical specifications. This section details the specific requirements of the project, including materials, standards, and performance criteria. Conditions of contract. This section outlines the legal terms and conditions that will govern the contract if the bid is successful. Form of tender. This is the formal document where the bidder submits their offer, including pricing and other relevant information. Bill of quantities or BOQ. This section lists the quantities of materials and work required for the project, often used for pricing purposes. Qualification information. This section requires bidders to provide information about their company and experience to demonstrate their ability to fulfill the contract. Contract data. This section provides specific information related to the project, such as the location, duration, and payment terms. Drawings. These provide visual representations of the project requirements. There are standard formats for tender documents provided by World Bank, Indian Banks Association, PWD, and CPWD. The World Bank uses specific standard bidding documents for procurement, which vary based on the type of contract and the procurement method. These documents provide a framework for both the borrower and bidders, ensuring transparency and fair competition. The World Bank provides standard procurement documents for various procurement methods, including international competitive bidding and national competitive bidding. For procurement of goods and works, the World Bank uses a request for bids document outlining the requirements and procedures. For consulting services, a request for proposals is used to evaluate proposals based on technical and financial criteria. The request for bids or RFB typically contains the following: contract title and reference number that clearly identifies the specific contract, name of the borrower and the implementing agency, description of the work including the scope of work, quantities, location, and other relevant specifications. Details of bidding process, one envelope or two envelope system. Specifies the requirement for a bid security and its amount. Specifies evaluation criteria which generally includes price, technical specifications, and experience of the bidder. Submission instructions on how and where to submit. Key dates including deadlines for bid submission, opening, and evaluation. The World Bank emphasizes principles like value for money, economy, integrity, and transparency. The World Bank encourages the use of e-procurement systems to streamline the bidding process. A request for proposals document in the World Bank format typically includes several key sections. Section 1 provides the format for request for proposals letter. This section refers to formal invitation to shortlisted firms to submit proposals. It includes details like the selection method and the relevant procurement regulations. Section 2 deals with instructions to data sheet, where guidance is provided to consultants on how to prepare and submit their proposals. Section 3 is technical proposal, which contains standard forms such as the consultant's experience, methodology, and work plan. Section 4 is financial proposal, which forms for submitting the financial aspects of the proposal. Section 5 specifies the countries that are eligible to participate in the procurement process. Section 6 outlines the World Bank's policies and procedures regarding fraud and corruption in procurement. Section 7 deals with terms of reference, giving a detailed description of the work to be performed. Section 8 contains standard forms of contract that will be used for the contract with the successful consultant. The Indian Banks Association (IBA) guidelines include aspects like vendor registration, bid submission procedures, and adherence to ethical practices. Key aspects related to tenders in the Indian banking sector are: guidelines related to vendor registration and e-procurement, where vendors typically need to register on these portals, creating a user ID and password. The process often involves online submission of technical and financial bids. Indian Banks Association has given guidelines related to the contents of the tender document. Format for the tender document is provided by IBA, which includes eligibility criteria for vendors to qualify for bidding, such as experience, financial standing, and technical expertise. Scope of work clearly defining the specific goods or services required. Detailed technical specifications. Terms and conditions, where standard clauses related to payment terms, delivery schedules, warranty, and penalties are included. Bid submission process, instructions on how to submit bids, including the format, deadline, and required documents, are provided. Evaluation criteria, where the criteria for evaluating bids, including price and technical aspects, are specified. PWD and CPWD formats for tenders are standardized documents used for inviting bids on construction and related projects. While both departments use similar formats, CPWD tends to have more stringent requirements and centralized procedures due to its central government jurisdiction. PWDs operate at the state level. Both utilize standardized forms like PWD 6 for notice inviting tender, PWD 7 for percentage rate tender, PWD 8 for item rate tender. Both PWD and CPWD use a general conditions of contract document with specific clauses relevant to percentage rate or item rate tenders. Tender documents include notice inviting tender, eligibility criteria, drawings, specifications, schedule of quantities and conditions. Both departments are increasingly using e-tendering platforms, requiring digital signatures and secure data encryption. CPWD tends to have more detailed and specific requirements, reflecting its centralized and standardized approach. CPWD works manual, including standard operating procedures, to guide its operations. The third stage in tendering process is invitation to tender. A notice inviting tender is a formal document used to solicit bids from contractors, suppliers, or service providers for a specific project, service, or supply. It's essentially a public invitation to participative bidding process. Sometimes a draft notice precedes the notice inviting tender. A tender draft notice is an early, preliminary version of the formal NIT that is circulated for review and feedback before it is finalized and published. The NIT is the final document that invites bids for a specific project, service, or supply. The purpose of NIT is to inform potential bidders about a specific opportunity and invite them to submit their proposals. To ensure transparency and fairness in the procurement process by making the information publicly available. To allow organizations to select a bidder based on predefined criteria. Key components of NIT are project details, including the scope of the project and the expected deliverables. Eligibility criteria of bidders like experience, financial capacity, and registration fees. Tender submission process, including the deadline, the format, and the required documents. Terms and conditions. And evaluation criteria. For example, a government department might issue an NIT for the construction of a road, inviting companies to bid for the project. Pre-qualification criteria are a set of requirements that must be met by bidders before they can be considered for a contract or opportunity. These criteria are technical capability. This assesses the bidder's experience and expertise in the specific field of the project. It may include requirements for past projects of similar nature, size, and complexity. Financial stability. This ensures the bidder has the financial resources to manage the project's costs and risks. It may involve reviewing the bidder's financial statements and other financial information. Organizational capacity. This evaluates the bidder's organizational structure, management capabilities, and resources to handle the project effectively. Legal and regulatory compliance. This ensures the bidder meets and regulatory requirements for the project, such as licenses, permits, and insurance. Other specific requirements. Depending on the project, there may be additional criteria. A pre-bid meeting is a gathering held before the bidding process for a project to clarify details and address questions from potential bidders. It allows bidders to understand the project requirements, scope of work, and any technical or commercial aspects before submitting their bids. These will for ensuring all bidders have the same information and can submit competitive and compliant bids, and they also help the client avoid potential issues later on. The fifth stage in tendering process is submission of bids. Bids are submitted by the bidders in the specified format. Bids are accepted only if they are submitted according to the specified methods online, in person, or by mail. Bids are accepted on specified deadline of submission. Bids complying with the document checklist are accepted. The required documents generally include technical and financial proposals, supporting documents, and any necessary guarantees. Bid security is a financial guarantee required from a bidder to ensure they are serious about their offer and will fulfill the contract if awarded. It acts as a form of insurance for the party requesting bids, protecting them from potential losses if the winning bidder withdraws or fails to fulfill their obligation. In a construction project, if a contractor wins the bid but then refuses to start the work, the project owner can use the bid security to cover the costs associated with finding a new contractor. Bid capacity refers to the maximum value of work a contractor can handle at a given time, ensuring they have the financial and technical ability to complete projects without being overwhelmed. It's a measure of a bidder's capacity to take on new projects, considering their existing workload, financial resource, and performance. The sixth stage in tendering process is tender opening and bid evaluation. The tenders are opened at the time and location specified in the tender notice. A board is responsible for opening the bids, checking them, and recording the details. The board verifies the authenticity, checks for completeness. Bid evaluation is the process of reviewing and assessing bids received in response to a request for proposals or tenders, aiming to select the most suitable offer. This involves evaluating bids based on predefined criteria, potentially including technical capabilities, financial proposals, and relevant factors. The process culminates in identifying the best evaluated bidder, often the one with the highest overall score or meeting the most critical requirements. A common method for evaluating bids, QCBS assigns weights to technical and financial scores to determine the overall ranking of bidders. Freak rates refer to extremely low or high rates quoted by a contractor for specific items of work, which deviate significantly from the expected market rates or the rates for similar items. These rates can be due to errors in calculation, a misunderstanding of the work requirements, a deliberate contract by undercutting, or a lack of understanding of the true cost of the work. Freak rates can lead to rejection of the tender, financial losses to the contractor. Contractors might compromise on quality to meet the unrealistic rates, leading to defect. Disputes over rates can cause delays in project completion. Example: if a contractor quotes a very low rate for excavation work, it might indicate a lack of understanding of the soil conditions, leading to potential issues later on. Contractor may be asked to submit rate analysis for a freak rate. Rate analysis is a detailed breakdown of the cost of an item of work, considering all the components involved. It helps in determining fair prices, ensuring both the contractor and client agree on reasonable costs for each item. Preventing disputes. Factors involved in rate analysis are material costs, labor costs, equipment costs, overheads, and contractors' profit. Example: rate analysis of concrete involving the cost of cement, sand, aggregate, water, and labor, as well as overheads and profit. The seventh stage in tendering process is the award of contract. The winning bidder is selected based on the evaluation results. The bid with the highest overall score or that best meets the evaluation criteria is selected. The winning bidder is officially notified of their selection. Negotiations are done with the chosen bidder. A standstill period may be required after the award notification for potential challenges. Finally, the contract document is signed and work order is issued. In many cases, the contract award is published of the winning bid and bidder. The last stage of the tendering process is contract execution. Contract execution refers to the formal process of finalizing and implementing the agreement reached after a successful tender. It involves fulfilling pre-contractual obligations and managing the contract throughout its life cycle. This includes ensuring all terms and conditions are met, deadlines are adhered to, and deliverables are completed as specified. What is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that creates mutual obligations. The contract agreement details the scope of work, payment terms, timelines, and other crucial aspects to ensure clarity and protect the parties. A construction contract is between the client and the contractor. A consultancy contract is between the client and the architect. Conditions of a contract are requirements that parties must meet for contractual obligations to take effect. The Indian Institute of Architects, IIA, publishes a standard set of conditions of contract for use in architectural projects. These conditions outline the responsibilities and procedures for both the architect and the contractor throughout the construction process. They cover various aspects, including timeframes, payment schedules, materials and workmanship standards, and dispute resolution mechanisms. Here's a more detailed look at the key aspects typically covered in an IIA contract. The scope of work and responsibilities are detailed out. Architect's role defines the architect's responsibilities, including design, documentation, site supervision, and contract administration. Contractor's role outlines the contractor's duties, such as executing the work according to the contract documents, providing materials, and managing the construction process. The quality standards for materials and workmanship are specified, often referencing Indian standard specifications. And timelines need to be established mentioning the project timeline, including milestones and deadlines, with provisions for delays and liquidated damages. Payment terms details the payment structure, including stages of payment, billing procedures, and methods for calculating fees. Cost of works clarifies how the cost of the project is determined and managed, including variations and additional costs. Liquidated damages addresses of failing to meet deadlines, often specifying a penalty for each week of delay. Legal and regulatory compliance is an important condition of the contract. It ensures that all contract documents, including drawings, specifications, and the agreement itself, are consistent and legally sound. It addresses insurance requirements for the project and outlines the response indemnifying against losses. It specifies the procedures for resolving disputes, often involving arbitration. Other important aspects covered in conditions of contract are defect liability period that defines the period after completion during which the contractor is responsible for rectifying defects. Intellectual property rights including ownership of copyright. And the condition contract can be terminated. In essence, the IIA conditions of contract serve as a comprehensive framework for managing construction projects, ensuring clarity, fairness, and accountability for all parties involved. Construction contract documents include but are not limited to contract drawings, specifications, bills of quantities, schedule of rates, form of tender, agreement and conditions of contract. Construction contracts can be broadly categorized based on payment, risk allocation, and scope of work. Common types include lump sum, cost plus, time and materials, unit price, design-build contract, guaranteed maximum price, and turnkey contracts. Let us understand each type of contract. Lump sum contract is a fixed-price contract where the contractor agrees to complete the project for a predetermined total cost. Advantage of lump sum contract is that the owner knows the total cost upfront and the contractor has a clear expectation of The disadvantage here is that the contractor may lose profit if costs exceeds the agreed price. Also, the budget constraints can limit project outcomes. In cost-plus contract, the owner reimburses the contractor for all allowable expenses, plus a fee. The fees can be fixed or percentage-based. This type of contract is suitable for projects with unclear scope or when costs are difficult to predict. The downside is the risk of cost overruns. In time and materials contracts, the contractor is paid for the actual time spent on the project, which accounts for the labor cost and the material cost. This type of contract provides flexibility for projects with changing requirements. However, it can be difficult to control, therefore requires careful monitoring of time and materials. In unit price contract, the contractor provides a price for each unit of work, example, per cubic meter of concrete. This type of contract is suitable for projects with predictable quantities of work. But it requires accurate quantity surveying and goods over quantities. In design-build contracts, design and construction, both, are done by the same agency. Pros of this type of contract are faster project delivery, integrated communication and collaboration. Con is that the owner may have less control over design decisions. In guaranteed maximum price contract, the owner pays the contractor's actual costs up to a pre-agreed maximum price. Advantage of this type of contract is that it provides cost certainty for the owner while allowing for potential savings for the contractor. Disadvantage is that it requires cost management and monitoring. In turnkey contract, the contractor is responsible for delivering a fully functional project, ready for operation. This is a single package contract where one contractor executes the entire project. For example, a bungalow project including civil construction, all services, in landscaping, and all other works. Choosing the right contract type depends on various factors, including the project's complexity, budget, timeline, and the owner's and contractor's risk appetite. Now, let us go through some important elements of a contract. Earnest money deposit, commonly known as EMD, is also called bid security. EMD is a refundable monetary deposit required from bidders to demonstrate their serious intent and commitment to a tender. It serves as a guarantee that the bidder will fulfill the contract terms if their bid is successful. When submitting a tender, bidders submit a certain amount of money as EMD. EMD is generally refunded to unsuccessful bidders. If the bidder is awarded the contract and fulfills the obligations, the EMD is typically refunded upon successful completion of the contract. If the bidder withdraws their bid, fails to fulfill the contract terms, or engages in other breaches, the EMD may be forfeited. Security deposit is an amount of money which shall be deposited by the contractor whose tender has been accepted. This is demanded by the buyer to recover any loss in case the winning bidder does not complete the task as per the work order. Security deposit is refunded after 6 months from the date of final bill has been paid and defects, if any, rectified. Retention money in construction contracts is a portion of the payment withheld from a contractor until the completion of the project and the resolution of any defects or issues. It serves as a financial safeguard for the client, ensuring the contractor fulfills their obligations and addressing any problems before final payment. A mobilization fund in a construction contract refers to an advance payment made by the client to the contractor at the start of a project, typically to cover initial expenses like site setup and equipment purchase. This advance allows the contractor to begin work without immediate reliance on their own capital, usually a percentage of the contract value, often between 5% and 20%, and is repaid through deductions from subsequent progress payments. In a construction contract, a bank guarantee is a promise from a bank to pay a specified amount to the client, if the contractor fails to fulfill their contractual responsibilities. In a consultancy contract, a bank guarantee is a promise from a bank to pay a specified amount to the client if they to fulfill their contractual responsibilities. In a construction contract, architects issue instructions to guide the contractor's work, ensuring it aligns with the contract's terms and design. These instructions can cover various aspects like variations, work progress, and quality control. They must be clear, in writing, and actively to the contractor, and can be a point of potential dispute if not handled properly. The architect acts as the client's agent and is responsible for overseeing the works, ensuring they are executed according to the contract. Broadly, instructions regarding following may be given: to vary the works, to postpone the works, to remedy workmanship, goods or materials which are not in accordance with the contract, to sanction a variation made by the contractor, in expenditure of provisional sums, to open up work for inspection, to carry out tests, to exclude persons from the site. A clerk of works, COW, is employed by an architect or a client on a construction site. The role is primarily to ensure that the project adheres to the agreed-upon specifications, drawings, and quality standards. They monitor construction progress, inspect workmanship and material, identify any deviations or defects. Their role is crucial for maintaining quality control and ensuring the project is built as intended. Key responsibilities of a clerk of works are: monitoring and inspection, quality control, defect identification, progress monitoring, record keeping, communication with the contractor, architect, and other stakeholders, health and safety, advising on technical issues, following legal and contractual obligations. A variation is a change to the original scope of work defined in the contract. This can include changes to the design, materials, quantities, or even the sequence of work. Some examples are: switching from asphalt to concrete paving, adding an building, changing the type of flooring specified. Variations typically involve altering the permanent works. They are usually instructed by the engineer or employer. Variations can affect the contract price and completion time. The contract usually specifies how variations are priced and valued. Extras are items of work that are not included in the original contract but are required for the completion of the project. Examples: additional excavation work due to unforeseen site conditions, upgrading the building's fire safety system, adding landscape not initially specified. Extras are often treated as separate work items, not part of the original contract. They may require separate pricing and valuation. The contract or agreement may specify how extra work is to be handled. In construction contracts, the defects liability period is a specific timeframe after project completion where the contractor is obligated to rectify defects that appear in the completed work. This period is usually defined in the contract and is often between 6 to 24 months. The contractor is responsible for fixing any issues at their own cost that arise due to faulty materials or workmanship. The Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, commonly known as RERA in India, extends the defect liability period to 5 years for structural defects, holding developers accountable. Once all defects have been rectified or the DLP expires, the project administrator issues a final certificate, signifying the end of the contractor's obligations related to defects. In a construction company, a car policy refers to contractors' all risks insurance. This type of insurance provides comprehensive coverage for construction projects, protecting against various risks such as property damage, third-party injury or damage claims, and even project delays due to circumstances. Essentially, it's a safeguard for both the contractor and the principal during the construction phase. A contractor's all-risk insurance covers various civil structures from damages such as fire, water, storm, impact, landslide, and so on. This policy also covers for the third-party liabilities such as damage to life or property of a third person arising due to your construction business. Other insurance policies related to construction project are Workers' Compensation Insurance Policy, which ensures that employees are protected if they get injured. For example, if an employee slips and falls while working at a client's site, a WC policy might pay his hospital some income while he recovers. General liability insurance covers injuries to body, property, and person while working. For example, if there is a damage to client's property accidentally or an injury occurs on job site, general liability insurance can cover those costs. Without general liability, contractor could pay a lot in legal fees, settlements, or judgments. Public liability insurance is crucial to protect the contractor against claims for bodily injury or property damage to third parties caused by the construction activities. This could include damage to neighboring properties or passers-by. Professional indemnity insurance is required if the contractor provides professional services like design or engineering. This policy protects them against claims arising from errors or omissions in their professional work. In India, liquidated damages in construction contracts are predetermined amounts specified in the contract that become payable in case of a breach, typically delay in completion. Section 74 of the Indian Contract Act, 1872, governs liquidated damages, emphasizing that stipulate damages, the amount awarded should not exceed the actual loss. For a liquidated damages clause to be valid, the stipulated amount must be a genuine pre-estimate of the loss, intended to restore the affected party to the position they would have been in had the contract been fulfilled. Termination of contract is a clause in the contract that specifies the grounds for termination and procedures to be followed for termination. It is crucial to follow contractual and legal requirements during termination to avoid potential disputes and liabilities. Common grounds for termination are breach of contract. It may be a material breach, or failure to perform work, or failure to pay, or failure to meet deadlines. Bankruptcy or insolvency. If either party is declared bankrupt or becomes, the other party may have grounds to terminate. Impossibility of performance. If circumstances make it impossible for a party to fulfill their contractual obligations, termination may be an option. Repudiation. If one party demonstrates an intention not to be contract, the other party may accept the repudiation and terminate the contract. Termination can be done by mutual agreement also. Section 39 of the Indian Contract Act, 1872 allows termination if a party refuses to perform or disables themselves from performing their obligations. Construction contracts often detail specific termination clauses, including notice periods and procedures. Contract without proper grounds can lead to legal claims for damages, including lost profits. If a contractor terminates for a cause, they may be entitled to payment for work done and potential losses. After gaining the basic knowledge of a construction contract, let us now understand the role of an architect in contract administration. In construction projects, an architect's role as contract administrator involves overseeing the project's execution to ensure it aligns with the contract and relevant regulations. Key responsibilities of an architect as contract administrator include monitoring project progress, managing the project's budget, including tracking expenses, quality control, providing guidance to both the client and contractor on their contract obligations, maintaining clear communication with all parties involved, keeping detailed records of site visits, inspections, correspondence, and financial transactions. Issuing relevant certificates, such as payment certificates and practical completion certificates, anticipating and addressing potential issues to prevent them from escalating into major problems. While administering a contract, the architect has legal and ethical responsibilities, like being independent and impartial, exercising proper judgment, possessing a thorough understanding of construction law and the specific terms and conditions of the contract. Actively fulfilling these responsibilities, the architect can help ensure a smooth and successful construction project, minimizing disputes and maximizing the chances of achieving the desired outcome within the agreed-upon terms.